And when milk is removed less effectively, then that can actually sabotage your supply, causing you to make less over time. A lot of moms feel that they need to have a breast pump from day one. Have it on hand just in case you and your baby need to be separated, but don't depend on it fully. The hands are the best way to go. However, if you're getting into a stage now where you want to start storing milk for whatever reason, then that's when you need a breast pump. And I recommend an electric breast pump. One that's, you know, the traditional one where you put on the flanges and you sit and you plug in and you go. Even the rechargeable ones are fine. And I recommend that for your primary pump. I know that wearable pumps are all the rage these days, and sure, that's perfectly fine, but I don't recommend them for your primary pump. Reason being, the motor for the wearable pumps are much smaller and they tend to remove milk less effectively. And when milk is removed less effectively, then that can actually sabotage your supply, causing you to make less over time. So primary pump, one that you can plug in, whether you're gonna charge it, sit down with the flanges and pumping, that's the one that's good to go. However, I don't recommend that moms start pumping from day one. If you want to, that's completely up to you. Some moms want to exclusively pump, but if you want to focus on breastfeeding, that bond between you and baby, and you want the baby to get the milk directly from the breast, including a pump in your whole regime can be detrimental. Reason being, you can create an oversupply, and that's when things like plugged ducts, mastitis, engorgement that's not natural comes in, and that's more trouble than what you're asking for, because you'll have milk happening and you can't remove it fast enough. You'll have to be constantly pumping, and being a mom to a newborn is enough work as is. So if you don't need to put in that extra task of pumping and you just breastfeed your baby on demand, then that's what I recommend. But of course, everybody has different ideals. Manual pumps can come in handy just because you don't have to be walking around with a lot of tubes and cords, and once your milk supply is established, a manual pump is quick and easy for you to just put on and go. However, whether it's a manual pump or an electric pump, the flange size is important. Reason being, remember, if the baby can latch on, their mouth size can move and change as needs be. However, a flange is a hard plastic and that shape stays. It can't move and manipulate the breast like a baby can. So for a flange size, you usually want to measure the nipple. So say for example, let's measure this nipple here, and this nipple, okay, that's a little bit too close. This nipple is about 17 millimeters, where it can come in and out with ease. Flange size is usually 2 to 4 millimeters more than what your nipple size is. So if this nipple size is 17 millimeters, then your flange size is 19 to 21 millimeters. If you have elastic nipples, meaning when you put it in the pump, it starts to elongate and get swollen, then it's best to stick to the lower flange size. So this was 17 millimeters for the nipple size. If it's elastic, then you want to stick to a 19. However, it's best to try it because sometimes it might be tight and squeezed and uncomfortable. So trial is what gets you there. The traditional way, if you don't have a fancy whole thing like I do, to measure your nipple is, imagine there's a line on either side of your nipple, like as close as possible. You just want to measure the distance from this line to the next line, and that is what will give you your nipple size in millimeters. So you measure it on the centimeter side, and how much ever centimeters it is, you divide or multiply by them, all of that math, and then that's what gets you your nipple size. That's the traditional way. A haakaa is all the rage these days. What exactly it is, it's technically a manual breast pump. It can be used as a manual breast pump, and it's also a letdown catcher. So let's look at how the haakaa works. Probably the best way to get the haakaa, I've seen so many people do it different ways, but the foolproof way for me is you flip it over this way, then you attach it to the areola, center the nipple, then you flip it over, and then you get the suction. And that's where you get, what will happen is that the breast will start to drip. So what's best to do is to have this on one side while the baby is breastfeeding on the other side, because breast milk supply is bilateral. It happens in both breasts at the same time. So instead of wasting all of that milk in a breast pad or wetting up your clothes, you can just collect the rest on the next side, and that's a good way to actually start a freezer stash.